Insecurity in Nigeria worsens. Armed terrorists running wild in communities, killing innocent civilians and wreaking havoc along their trail. This is why President Bola Tinubu has made significant shake-ups in the country's security outfits hierarchy, appointing new service chiefs to bring new perspectives, vigor, and new tactics to the fight against terror. The Department of State Services, or the DSS, calls for vigilance ahead of Eid, that's the Muslim festival. It says there are indications of a planned attack on worship and recreation centers, but Nigerians are asking why the DSS isn't making any arrests yet. Now, if they can be privy to such information, they should immediately catch the terrorists red-handed. Well, why aren't they making those arrests? You ask him. I'll be joined in the studio by Mike Ejiofor. He's a former director at the Department of State Services. I'll also be joined by guest analysts who will be with me combing through other stories making the headlines. I'm Sulaiman Aled, and this is Arise Prime Time. Now, the Department of State Services has called for vigilance ahead of the Muslim festival of Eid al-Adha, while saying that reports indicated plans to attack worship and recreational centers before and even during the festivities. Now, in a statement by the spokesperson of the DSS, Dr. Peter Afunaya, the DSS is also advising operators and patrons of public places, including markets and stalls, malls, to be very watchful and report any suspicious movements of persons to the relevant security agencies. According to the service, it will continue to partner with other agencies for necessary proactive drills to frustrate the criminals and their activities. The statement also disclosed that a joint security team comprising the DSS, the Nigerian Army, and the Niger Police Force carried out operations in Nasarawa and Kogi states, neutralizing and apprehending some criminals. In all of this, Nigerians are asking why the DSS is not rounding up these terrorists instead of just making statements. But again, we have Mike Ejiofor. He's a former director at the Department of State Services. He joins me in the studio to make sense of all of this. Good to see you, and thanks for your time.
Thanks for having me.
Yes, a whole lot happening. In all of this, this is a statement coming from the DSS specifically. And tell us about some of these information that we get that are shared to the people, how important they are and what kind of people really do.
Normally, statements issued by the State Security Service are advisory to put people on the alert, to be conscious of what is going to happen. You know, your intro, you talked about why the SSS have not arrested the terrorist. In that press statement by Dr. Peter Afunaya, he did mention that they had a joint operation of the police and the army with the SSS, and arrests were made with IADs. Don't also forget that these people have gone under interrogation, and during the interrogation, some information must have been released. And the SSS is not expected to begin to release the details of the information. But the most important thing is that cells have been broken. And once that is done, the others will be on the run. The primary responsibility of the State Security Service, prevention and detection of crimes against the state. So by the time these enemies of the society are aware that some arrests have been made, they will be on the run. That is not also to say that the members of the public, possibly because of the information filtered from them, must be aware of what is going on and be conscious, especially now that you see we have a new government and the enemies of state will want to embarrass the government. So everybody must be on the alert. I think that's what the SS says, without going into the details of their findings. Because if I tell you right away that if you begin to give out all the necessary information acquired from people will be scared and they will panic.
In fact, that's where I'm headed, because when information like this come, there's consciousness, there is some kind of awareness, but the last one is some sense of panic. So how well can the people understand that this is what it is, information, and for you to be on the guard and not to panic?
Yeah, I think that's why the alert is issued. First of all, we cannot leave our security challenges to the security forces alone. They need the cooperation of members of the public. It's a well-known fact that these elements live among the people. But at times you see people saying, we cannot go out to make some such reports for fear. And at the end of the whole situation, the members of the public become the victim. So, like it said, see something, say something. Now that we are aware that these people are planning this evil, especially during the Eid, all eyes must be on ground. Everybody must be alert. Volunteer information to the, because it's a new government and they need to stabilize.
You took us back now by that phrase, see something, say something.
Yes.
Is the DSS still big on that? Because that was a big national, phrase for a movement to create awareness back then. But it's been a while. Anyone heard that?
Yeah, there are a lot of reforms going on in intelligence gathering. We don't have to go physical more, but there's no way you can also not operate with the people. But we have more of advanced technology in acquiring information, monitoring of the criminal elements, and that's what led to this arrest that just been made and the breaking of more cells. You agree with me that there have been an upsurge, in attacks and kidnapping, especially between Plateau, Benue, Kaduna, and the rest of them. There's been an upsurge, but I think the security agencies are working. As we progress, maybe we need to analyze those.
And I want to stay on this for a bit. Let's stretch it, because you have qualified this using the word cell. It then means one thing in the mind of an average Nigerian, that we're talking about some terrorist here. So yeah. There's still some sort of in our cities, in our villages, in our communities, because this specifically was around Kogi and some parts of Nasarawa State.
The terrorists, they are trained. They are not just ordinary people on the street. They operate in cells, just like the security agencies operate too. But the most important, the way we have advantage, or where the security agencies have advantage, they are instruments of government. These people operate in fear, and they don't have rules of engagement. They don't care who dies and whatever thing they are doing. But you see, the society too is not helping issues. By the time one or two people are neutralized in the process, you begin to say they should have been taken to court. And when they are taken to court, you see the judicial process is slow and a lot of technicalities. You allow them come back into it. At times, you visit the prisons, correctional centers, and you have release. One of the people arrested was a jailbreak. One of the people arrested in this operation was jailbreak, and you can see the amount of ammunition. And in addition to that, IADs were recovered. Prime IADs were recovered. And that means that these people are still planning attacks. Don't also forget that Abuja is contiguous to Nasarawa, Kogi, and Kaduna. So the tendency for them to come up to attack Abuja is not, they've done it before, but due to the efforts of our security forces, they've been repelled. When they are the climax of the attacks in Borno, the northeast, and these people came on heat, they dispersed and came up to Kaduna, kidnapping people, coming to Zamfara, Kaduna, and the rest of them. Kogi, you know, is a hotbed as far as all these areas are concerned. So they've dispersed in that place, but they are trying to regroup again in Borno with the recent intelligence available.
Is this safe to say that these were sleeper cells that have just been reawoken?
They are not sleeper cells, I'll tell you. They've been there active but neutralized. They are not given space to operate. Now, with the charge of the president, the new president, that is going to invest in security, is going to make security the centerpiece of his administration, you tend to waken them up again that we must try the strength of this government. And if we don't handle them now, they're going to cause more problems. I think that's why the SSS is issuing the advisory.
Now, this falls again back on the community. Let's speak, about community involvement, how much the communities can actually play in ensuring that these are not allowed to fester or help the DSS and other security agencies in ensuring that these people are actually pushed back.
Yeah, that brings me to the statement made by President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, where he invited all the traditional rulers, to get involved in issues of security. And you remember what Dione said? Get us involved. Get us involved. Use us.
Is that important?
It's very important. Because before the advent of democracy, we had our ways of ruling and governing our people at the community level. Unfortunately, the local government has become very ineffective because of interference from governors. The governor will come up today, dissolve an arm of government. You see, so the tendency for them to pander to the whims and caprices of the governor, irrespective of this, becomes a problem. So, and the traditional rulers are not even spared. So they must be assigned constitutional responsibility. You see, a governor will come up and dethrone a traditional ruler because either you are not supporting the government in power. So they should be given constitutional responsibilities, and the process of nominating or electing or selecting the traditional ruler should be left with the tradition. Granted that the state government will recognize. I don't see the involvement of government recognizing traditional rulers, way that has control over a certain people.
But you'd agree that sorry to cut you.
Yes.
Sorry to cut you, Mr. Ejiofor, but you also agree that the DSS needs to also help the government in identifying some criminally minded traditional rulers.
Oh, yes.
Because it's not every traditional ruler.
I agree completely with you, because nobody is above the law. If any traditional ruler is found wanting, he'll be prosecuted. It's not, they don't have any immunity. So that doesn't, for me, hold water. But what I'm saying is that there's interference in the traditional institutions by government. So they should be given constitutional responsibilities and allowed to govern their people. In fact, in some communities, you see factions. In a community, you see 2-3 traditional rulers. So how do you reconcile them? Government comes, it becomes a security problem again. So we look at all those things and see how, in addition to traditional rulers' involvement, we should also evolve other means of checking this, like community policing, where you started. Yeah. It's very, very key and very, very important. We've been practicing community policing. But in addition to that, there must be constitutional provision for the state police. People have argued that state police will be used and abused by the state government or the state governors. That's a fact. But you can also go to court to enforce your rights if your rights are infringed upon. Again, why I'm always insisting on state police. If the problem in Borno State, the solution you apply to get the challenges there solved will not be the same thing you apply in agitation in the southeast. So each geopolitical zone, each state has its own peculiar problem that also has a peculiar solution to it. So we have to localize all our security challenges and our security solutions.
Let me bring in one aspect which is not too new to many of members of DSS, because some directors, a lot of directors are also members of the fourth estate of the realm who have studied communication and journalism. It has to do with news that are unverified, call it fake news, and how that also may compound or jeopardize some of the things we're talking about now.
Yeah, this is your question. I think it will give me an opportunity to highlight some dangers of fake news. I was on a rise here 2 days ago on Morning Show. The next thing I heard from an online newspaper was that Mike Ejiofor, former director of DSS, said that unless God does not exist, Obi will never be a president of this country. I was taken aback because I never mentioned any name. So I issued a rebuttal immediately and threatened the legal action.
So this happened to you?
Yes. Just 2 days ago. So I issued and they threatened the legal action. The online newspaper now pulled down the story, but I'm still going to press on with my legal action against them because it was embarrassing. We never discussed anything like that. It never came into a discussion. So the dangers of fake news, like you said, some of our directors, they are very good in communication. For instance, I personally took this responsibility for myself. When I was a director, at least I had privilege of being a director in 7 states in this country. The first people I look for is NUJ. I look for the chairman, I host them and other correspondents. The difference between the functions and responsibilities of SSS and the news media, we're all looking for news. The difference are consumers. The State Security Service writes for the government to formulate policies, while the media informs the people. So I tell them at times, and I think our journalists should take that advantage. There are stories you cannot publish.
There are stories?
There are stories you cannot publish. That is of interest to me. There are stories that are of not interest to me, but I'll give you a headline. It give you a big headline, big news. So we will have this exchange of information. They would need to cooperate with the media. You say the fourth estate of the realm. So we need them and they need us. And I'm also happy that the current DGSSS has been interacting with the media. You have a media executive, they even go to the extent of having exchanges, training and all this among the top media executives to differentiate what constitutes national security. You must divide the line between national security and sensationalism in selling your papers, and you see, is a big problem.
It was recently my guest on the show, former Governor Issa Yuguda, specifically singled out the DSS, and he said the DSS is big on national security. And now you just use the same word, the same phrase. Now let's see if we can wind down, talk about national cohesion. One of the key things the president said recently when the DSS was also in the news then in that issue between the DSS and the FSS, he said he doesn't want anyone to work in silos. They must collaborate. How is it going? Because I know once in, always in. So you should have a sense of the kind of relationship between security chiefs and operatives at the moment. Is that what it is at the moment?
I can tell you that there's a lot of improvement in terms of synergy and collaboration between the agencies. The one we had now that I just gave you an example is a joint operation between the police, the army, and DSS. And the president specifically directed that they must not work in silos. So they must also look at the body language of the president. If you are not cooperating, you are supposed to provide intelligence, you are not providing intelligence. Or you are giving intelligence, you fail to act on it. The president must give a marching order that they should cooperate. And that also brings me to the issue of the appointment of the new security, the service chiefs and the new security advisor. You know, I've asked for the past 2 days, I've been on several media outfits answering the same question. You know, people are saying, why must the president appoint a policeman as NSA? And I also ask, is there any way it's written in the Constitution that the military must occupy the office of the NSA? You know, it was, I think, in this station that I raised the issue that there was going to be a conflict when Nuhu Rubadu was appointed SA, which was non-existent since 1999. And I said, you need to elevate that office, the office of the National Security Advisor, because if you have a National Security Advisor and a Security Advisor, there's going to be conflict. You cannot avoid it. Now, he has been elevated to office of the National Security Advisor. We are democratizing. The previous occupiers of that seat, the federal government, have been military men. Apart from Goodluck Jonathan and Yaradua, all of them have been military. So they have been patronizing their constituencies. Has it helped us? So let's give another try. This man is a complete civilian and a Democrat. So he's trying to see how he can re-engineer the process, and maybe we'll get a different result.
And a final word from you, the results Nigerians are waiting. They are hungry to see a change, a departure from what it's always been. What do you see from being an insider? Are we likely to see a big boost in the fight?
Oh, sure. First of all, it will start with the appointment. You can see the spread. So a situation where a group of people from a particular ethnic group will sit down and take decisions to the exclusion of others.
I'm excited you noticed the spread.
Yes.
How important is that to security?
It's very, very important. I'll give you an example. You know, the Southeast, why I'm not emphasizing that appointments should be based on ethnicity or religion. There must be all that inclusiveness. The appointment of Chief of Naval Staff definitely is going to douse tension. I'm not saying it's going to solve the problem of agitation and all this thing. And that brings me to another issue. We cannot concentrate on kinetic approach to solve this approach. Jackboot, military, we need to win hearts and minds. The government needs to adopt this approach of looking at the grievances of people and addressing them. The issue of agitation of the Southeast, there's agitation in the Southwest, but I know that will die now because Southwest Ejiofor is the president. They will not want to fight. There's agitation in the North. There's agitation everywhere. So we need to converge, look at issues. What are the grievances of people? Let us start from there. The economy we have harsh economic conditions now as a result of all this. So get palliatives. Let us come together as a united Nigeria. So the president must emphasize on unity of this country. One other issue on this issue of unity, state of origin, for instance. I also want the president to look at the issue of state of indigency. Let us forget this. If you occupy, Babangida tried it. If you live in a state for 5 years, you are allowed to contest election. You are born in a state. It becomes your state of origin. And we forget all these Igbo, Hausa, Yoruba, and all the rest of them. You intermarry, yet you cannot come together to rule govern the country.
That's a big one. You intermarry. and you interdate.
Yes.
Anyway, it's a fine place for us to leave it, and we hope that that will be an assignment for the 10th National Assembly.
Oh, yes.
Mike Ejiofor, former director of DSS, many thanks for speaking with us.
Thank you.